Hello everybody, I'm joined today with Dan, who is going to talk to me a little bit about how he embedded What's Your Strength into his school. He is an incredible careers advisor and careers leader and kindly invited me into his school a little while ago, and he showed me how he has been using the cards and also some new What's Your Strength posters that are going to be available really soon. So I thought it'd be useful for you to hear from a real careers advisor how he uses them in school. So first of all, Dan, can you tell me a little bit about how you introduced the posters to the wider staff and how you embedded it into the whole school ethos?
So we were using the cards, so What's Your Strength cards, in one-to-one sessions, and the pupils understood what we was talking about. So they understood that on one side is the subject and that the teacher teaches the subject, and on the other side is the qualities and the skills. And we talk about that in school in terms of how employers might see you and celebrate that subject. They are less maybe interested in the subject itself, but what you have developed from it. And what we thought about was, how do teachers understand that? So to try and connect and make a sequence of understanding from learning to person and then to the world of work, we thought it'd be good to deliver as a session with the teachers.
So you actually ran like a CPD session for teachers.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that stemmed obviously from all the young people. So it was informed, from them. This is what we use, this is what we understand. So then we need to make it relate to the wider school. So we delivered a CPD session for 30 minutes with subject leads and different teachers.
Brilliant. So I know when I came to visit your school and you showed me a few of the subject classrooms, I could see that the posters were on some of the whiteboards, physically on the whiteboards. Can you tell me a little bit about why they were there and how they're used?
Yeah, so working with the teachers in the CPD, we went through the teachers that were in the room on the subjects. So we talked about science, geography, maths and English and history. And we looked at the cards in detail. So the teacher understood their subject really well, but what they wanted to do is relate to the young person and how then that relates to the one-to-one guidance, and then that's incorporating the skills and the qualities. So what the teachers really liked is that link. Actually, we are teaching that. We're teaching it in class, but they didn't realise. So we've got the posters. We printed them off, working quite closely with the groups at the moment. So geography is one, English is another, and working quite closely on how we can introduce it better. So at the moment we've got the posters next to the board and on the board. So when there is a direct link to a skill or a quality, for example, in history, though it's not necessarily on the card, we talk about chronology. So what it's done is it's expanded the understanding of skills and qualities. So in history, they have the poster right next to the board. The teacher will signpost to it, and pupils will then come up with different things. And chronology was something that came up. So
Brilliant.
Actually, I can forecast, I can think back and think forward. And that came from the CPD and the young person understanding the cards.
Brilliant. And what I found really nice when I was walking around, I could see that the poster was like literally right there.
Yeah.
And the teacher was teaching the lesson and then almost like pointing at the card and saying, this is the skill that we're now talking about or we're now developing.
100%.
And what you'll notice when you get the posters, there's some questions at the bottom to encourage some conversation, encourage some conversation between the teachers and students. And what's lovely to hear is that actually they've come up with some of their own skills.
Definitely.
Which, the skills that are listed on the cards and also on the posters is not exhaustive. And I love it when young people come up with their own skills triggered by the card or the poster. Yeah. So that's really nice to hear that's happened.
It was for a young person who was exploring law, and that's where it came about. They just could not understand from year 9 why they chose history.
Right.
So they used your card, we looked at the skills and the qualities which were on the card, and then we looked at what else do you develop and what would be useful for going into law.
Brilliant.
And that's where chronology and forecasting, understanding past and present came from.
So it really is that linking curriculum learning to careers, isn't it? That Gatsby Benchmark 4. So
100%.
Would you say that the cards and all the posters or together supported your school meeting Gatsby Benchmark 4?
I think it was the start of absolutely understanding how important Gatsby Benchmark 4 was. So going into school, it would be fair to say in most schools people work in silos, but the cards have created a conversation. It's expanded the understanding of less working in silos and actually, I wonder what skills they're learning and developing different subjects. So, for example, I worked with a pupil yesterday. They're told their behaviour isn't great, but actually teamwork actually cropped up a lot on their cards in sequence based on subjects, and they were quite empowered by that. So now they're looking for where teamwork is within the classroom.
So where else in the school, which other subjects they might be able to develop it?
So they're disengaged, not been in the classroom, not necessarily interested in the subject, but now they want to go into the classroom, look at where teamwork takes place.
Brilliant.
It's a really clever way of getting the pupils to understand their own strengths, which is what it's about, but also it's another tool for the teachers to engage with a disengaged person, for example.
Yeah. And seeing those, how it's woven throughout the whole school,
Yes.
Like you say, rather than each thing being independent of each other. So I know that they were displayed in subject classrooms.
Yep.
So obviously the green cards,
Yes.
or posters, should I say. But I know that you also had the purple ones displayed. Where did you have those in school?
So we have different departments. So obviously there's a careers department. So I have them around my office. We have looked after children, which is children that are in care or coming out of care, and we've got SEND departments. So where those pupils that are diverse and they've got different support mechanisms, we've got them on display there. We've got a room called Thrive. We're going to place them in there. A lot of neurodivergent children go in there and feel safe. And we're going to pop some up there. So looking at how to manage your own health, and they're going to be able to look at those.
Lovely. So it's broader than just the skills they're learning in their subjects. It's their life experiences and their hobbies, which obviously is what the purple cards are all about.
Yeah, and we use that a lot, obviously, within the one-to-ones. They can relate when there's fear around subjects and learning, which sometimes there is. The purple cards are excellent because it's really about self. Like, they have achieved something. They are neurodiverse. Like, they can own that card. Whereas the green card is collaborative. But it's worked well as a collaborative tool because there is now a relationship with the teacher, with the pupil, and with the careers advisor.
And I know from my own experience of using the cards, I can, that what you've just said resonates, that idea of owning, that holding the card and they own those skills. Now obviously the posters are slightly different because they're going to be displayed. How would you say the cards complement the posters and vice versa?
So the poster is a tool in itself that the poster elevates the cards. Right. So I wouldn't want the posters necessarily just to be used on their own. Right. Because it's about the relationship. So you've got the card and you've got the poster. The posters look quite similar to the cards. So when the pupil's working with you on a one-to-one, they'll use the cards, they'll understand it, they're holding it. Then what they'll do is then go around school. So it's building that relationship, like I said, about the teacher and pupil. So they'll see them in the classroom, they'll understand that that's a bit of them, even though they're not holding the card, but it's on the poster. So
it's reinforcing what they've learned about themselves whilst holding those cards in a one-to-one session, but then they're being reminded all the time. And it's been embedded wherever they are in the school.
And I would be cautious of just having posters up, because posters can become polluted and a poster can then be another poster. If there were more than one poster, I'd have it on a display board in prominent places, but I'd like to see them being worked and used together. And that stems from a good careers leader having that relationship with Gatsby Benchmark 4 with the wider team. But everybody knows what What's Your Strength cards are.
Fantastic. So they're very much two resources that complement each other rather than being separate from each other. Brilliant. So you've given loads of examples of how you've been using them in your school. Would you have any top tips, I suppose, for other careers advisors, leaders or teachers or staff in a school of how to make best use of the posters?
So I'm lucky. I get to do careers advice and careers leader. So I can see an end point as well as the starting point. As a careers leader, I understand sometimes it's quite difficult to navigate the whole, faculty. There's a whole big team there trying to get people on board, but CPD was the way in. Right. So for us, CPD was the way in. So I presented some posters on my careers glass, so into my office, people could see that, and then I delivered a CPD session. I was really lucky that people turned up because they didn't have to.
Oh, that's good.
They did, and they were like, wow, So getting in that way is great. I
Brilliant.
think if you can develop something and having some instruction of how to use them, you've
Yeah.
got to remember teachers are time bound.
Yeah.
But if you've got something that's ready, they can pick up and understand quite quickly, they're on board. And that's what that CPD session did.
Brilliant, that's great. So CPDs worked really well,
Yeah.
having them around in prominent places around the school
Yeah,
has
definitely.
worked.
Making the links, so explicit links. So if a pupil is in geography, because I know that's where some of the cards are, you know, they're talking about analysis, they're talking about so many different things, and it sort of brings the lesson to life a little bit.
Yeah.
So the teacher does point to it and reminds people, you know, the classroom is massive, the poster's not amazingly big because posters aren't, but the pupils have seen that card, they know what's on there, and they're able to make a link from the lesson to the other work and then to self.
Fantastic. So hopefully some of what Dan has shared with you today has been really useful. When you buy the posters, you will get your own sort of how-to guide as well, with lots of other top tips, loads of other sort of thought-provoking questions that you might want to talk to students about. But hopefully that's been of use and given you lots of food for thought. But if you've got any other questions or anything you want to share about Watch Your Strength or the posters themselves, then please get in touch. But thank you very much, Dan, for joining me. Thank you.